My name is Kevin Teasley, and welcome to this episode in our Neve 8424 tutorial series. We're here at United Recording Studios on the Sunset and Gower lot in Hollywood, California, in my personal production room, Studio K. As always, behind me is my Neve 8424, and in my side rack, a Neve 8816. And in today's episode, we have a treat for you because we're going to talk about using the Neve 8424 in a post-audio television broadcast application. We were fortunate enough to work with the awesome rapper Latto, also known as Mulatto, on RCA Records for the 2021 BET Hip Hop Awards. We're going to show you how we took the live elements with the record elements and the broadcast elements and made that into what you're going to see. Please click the link below to watch the final performance, and then let's turn around and show you how we did it. I was fortunate enough to work with a very talented live music producer and music director on this, Carice Whitley. And so he did a great job of doing the music production and sending me over stems of where he added live band elements, sound design, live guitar, live bass over the songs that Latto was performing. She was going to do her rap vocal live, so I had to deliver back to him the mix that's approved by him and the artist, so that he could do any last minute stem changes because they were in rehearsal very close up into the actual taping in Atlanta, Georgia, I believe. So I wanted to give him the mix that he had been used to hearing and the artist had been used to hearing, but give him also stems that was very indicative and almost summed up to the 2-track mix that everyone had been listening to. So I'll go over with you now to my Pro Tools session so that you can see how I have things set up. As always, I kind of start with heat on every channel in this session. And then after that, like in my previous episodes, I have console 1 on that first insert that I'm using. Again, just for gating, expansion, filtering, EQ tone shaping, and some light compression if it's needed. For example, for this one, we kept the live drums instead of comping it down to a 2-track print. I wanted all the drums separated in this session because there was a lot of things that the drummer was doing with the electronic drums from the track was doing. So I wanted to make sure they kind of all set in a good place. For example, on the snare top, I'm starting with the console 1. Then after that is a Neve 88 RS EQ. And then after that, there's a Harrison EQ. Then after that, I'm blending it with a snare sample, only about 26% on the snare sample, just to add a little something to it. And then a DBX 160 compressor. And then after that, the Little Labs Voice of God, just to add some girth and some low-end punch to it. So let's go over what's in this session. You'll start to see the workflow and the similarities between my sessions. I'm starting off with the 2 mixes, the auxiliaries that the buses that everything's getting sent to the actual groups. There's a leads, acapella, BGVs, 2-track, drums live, drums electronic, sound effects, electric bass, bass synth, guitars, guitar leads, keyboards, and strings and orchestra. So you can see how I have everything laid out. And then after that, you see my stem mix prints coming back into Pro Tools from the direct outs of the console. For this show, I did it a little bit different. I did the prints back into Pro Tools post fader because I wanted the music director to be able to get back from me the way the stems were leveled out and mixed and everything baked in from what everyone was used to listening to. But what I also did that I kept from my archives, I did a playlist where I switched the console over to the direct outs to be pre-fader. So that way I had everything at a nominal level. The great thing about doing it post-fader as well, if I ever needed to pull just the stems back up post fader, I could work with it just in the box. I don't do a lot of master bus processing on the console. I usually do that in the box with plugins so that if I have stems, I can, EQ and compress and limit it from there. But also the great thing about having it for my records pre-fader is that if I pull these stems back up at the level that they're hitting the console, and I, from my Neve Recall app, pull this session up again, the faders will be indicative to what it was coming in when it was a full session. So that's very important to remember. So that's how I have it there. You see things going on in the session. The guitars became important in this one. They're going to, Roland Space Echoes and the PCM 92 and the TC Reverb 4000. But as in the previous episodes, you can see here I have notes to where I'm sending the leads to a pair of API 550As to the Neve 2264 ALBs. The BGVs are going to the Mag EQ4s, to the Portico MBP2s. The drums live. Again, these are once they hit the console, these are the hardware inserts that come in on the console. So for example, the drums live are coming into 9 and 10. And then on the hardware insert, there are a pair of Neve 1073 EQs going to an SSL G bus and then to an oversteer MAS to kind of give it some harmonic saturation. And you can see here that even before it hits the console, it's hitting some tape emulation, and then it's also hitting the Neve 33609 unlinked. So there's layers to everything. Another example is the electric bass is hitting on the insert a hardware DBX 160, an SSL 611 hardware EQ, and then a distressor. But actually on the bass synth, it's hitting a Neve 1073 EQ to an 1176 to an LA2A. The guitar leads on the inserts, once it hits the console, it's hitting a pair of TLA Summit TLA A50s, and a better maker limiter. So again, like the other videos, I'm doing stuff on the individual channels, and then it's hitting the two mixes here in the console. Also on the guitars, not the leads, but the guitars, is the Analog Design black box plugin from Plugin Alliance. Excuse me. So I'm sorry, so to back up, it's going from the channel with processing on each individual channel in the box to the auxiliary or the two mixes with maybe some more processing on it. And then it's hitting the actual console fader with inserts on the console faders. And then on some of the things like the orchestra, it's being sent to the lexicon, it's being sent to the Reverb 4000 as well. So I'll just play the track a little bit, and you can see and hear how everything is getting printed back in. It's being printed in again post fader. So the prints that I'm handing over to the music director, who will do his final tweaks on it in rehearsal, are indicative to our mix. On another pass, I'll do a print with the direct outs being pre-fader. What's important to note is that you want to be able to make sure that everyone's getting everything that they need and you're working fast. You're giving yourself flexibility in the box, you're giving yourself flexibility on the console. What I did here was send, just like in episode 3, I'm sending any BGVs and ad libs, because it's a rap track. There are a lot of ad libs and things like that the rapper uses as cushion to be able to rap to. So they're going to my group 3 and 4. For this performance, all of the BGVs and all of the vocals ad libs are going to group 3 and 4. Also in the performance, when you saw the final footage, there's quite a bit of sound design that's going on as well in the interlude. And so all the sound design is going to groups 1 and 2. So now when I deliver that, I'm being able to send back a full mix that I'm printing on my mix outs like we discussed in episode 3, as well on my hardware outputs on groups 1 and 2, I'm printing just the sound design elements. And on group 3 and 4, I'm printing all the vocals. Again, for many of the final deliverables, TV shows, networks, and films, a lot of times they want any ambience or sound design separate, any vocal separate, and then the track separate. So I'm delivering a lot of things for this performance. I'm delivering 2-track mixes for them to rehearse to and to get approvals. I'm sending the music director back stem prints post fader in case he needs to do any nudging or editing later. They might want to take out a bar, but at least they're taking out a bar from the stems that is indicative of the mix, and he's not trying to recreate the mix. From my archival purposes, I'm also doing another pass, printing everything, stems back in pre-fader. So I'm getting things at a nominal level, everything baked in case I ever need to pull it back up again and recall the session from the recall app. I'm able to do any more adjustments, but everything coming in at the nominal level. I'm also delivering a instrumental track stem. I'm also delivering a all vocals stem and sound design, sound effects, ambient stem. Again, I hope this all makes sense, and I'm sure it does, but it just gives you further insight to how we're routing everything, how we're sending it back. For me, the stems get printed back into the session, and then the 2-track mixes and the mix minuses, what we call them, are getting sent to the print rig as well. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode and gave you a little insight to that performance, and we look forward to the next one.